morning, everybody. I can definitely tell that a broker panel is just as interesting as Beta's video sales meeting because the room is so full. Wasn't that a great meeting last week? Did you guys enjoy that?
Yeah.
So on behalf of Beta, I want to thank all those that got signed up for the great new video series. I know it's going to make a big difference in your business. So Beta, great job on that. A couple of announcements. Number one, what's the best thing about February?
It's short month.
Short month, right?
My birthday.
I was going to say it's my wife's birthday and my daughter's birthday,
And
just
my
2 days
birthday.
apart, and Janet's birthday.
When is it?
And tomorrow is Groundhog's Day,
And
right? That movie is on replay all weekend long if you haven't seen it yet. And the Super Bowl, that's right, who cares about that? Couple of things happening, good news, your 1099s.
What is the great thing about February in the U.S.?
It's my wife's birthday, I said that. Sure, in the front row. So 1099s are going out, but with 600 agents, believe it or not, the email was sent. And so far, Todd and I have both gotten it because our last names are in the V's. You got yours too? Okay. There's only 100 left waiting to go out, so in the next hour you'll all have good news. We have some CE classes coming up on the 2nd, 9th, and 23rd. We have classes right here in Spanish Ridge. They're all from 10 to 1. Lois has some schedules back there in the back if you'd like one. And you can also go to Signature Schools NV and get signed up. There's a reminder that post-licensing is the 14th on Valentine's Day through the 18th by Zoom. So definitely if you need your post, get that done. You guys will notice that Vonna is not here today, but we're not forgetting about her. She has been nominated for Women Who Wow. I was not nominated for Women Who Wow, but please go on to Facebook and click on her nomination form and give her an extra nomination. It would help her out, and it's on our signature Facebook page. Janet, you have some information on committees. Tell us all about that.
Oh, I do. I also want to say there's also a 1-hour CE class on February 22nd, which I've been waiting over 6 months to get. Attorney Lee Dreisen will be teaching the class. It's only 1 hour of CE, but we just had 1 hour of CE last week, and we're getting another 1 hour of CE. But anyway, it's called Solar Panels, a not-so-sunny day for agents. So and that's on February 22nd. It's a lunch and learn. So please register with who? Lois?
Either one. I got it on the website now.
It's on the school website, or you can also register with Kaylee at the front desk.
What time is it, 11?
What time is that?
Let's start 12 to 1.
12 to
12
1.
Perfect.
Excuse me. So, if you've been on a committee, you know that except for the first 2 committee meetings of January, all the committee meetings were canceled due to COVID, and also mainly because half the staff at LVR was home sick. So, if you didn't get to go to a committee meeting, they're going to start over in February with, if you come to the February meeting of the open committees, you're automatically a member. If you miss the February meeting, you have to go to 3 committee meetings in a row before you become a member. Now, most of them are going to be a hybrid. You can either go attend in person at LVR, or you can log in and watch it via Zoom. But if you're going to do Zoom, you have to register in advance, so go on the LVR website. So here are the dates. Trends is going to be Tuesday, February 8th and 11th. What?
You said my favorite committee.
Oh, okay. Political Affairs is going to meet Thursday, February 10th at 8:30, and I think I could be right when I say Annie Bushman is chair of
I'm the chair.
Triz.
Yeah.
Give it to you. And Patty, huh?
I've been on that trend.
It's fun, you learn a lot on that committee.
Yeah, it's great.
And it doesn't require any work on your part.
Foundation building and stand.
Yes.
Right. And so Thursday, February 10th at 8:30 is Political Affairs, and our own Patty Kelly is chair of that committee.
We're going to be talking about legislative issues that will be coming up in 2023.
Okay, Michael?
Will that be the first political affairs? I understood that they had one in January.
No,
Okay.
no, they did not.
Okay, great.
Okay.
We did have political affairs, but no meeting was held.
Okay.
So if you're interested in YPN, Young Professional Network, our own Tyson Roberts is chair of that committee, and they meet Thursday, February 10th at 1 o'clock. Global Business Committee. Now, Michael, are you chair of that this year?
Yes.
And God, we've got all our chair, yeah.
It's good to be the president.
Our own Michael Shiro is chair of Global Business Committee, and they meet February 16th at 10 o'clock. So, get yourself on a committee, get yourself involved. Most of them require an hour of your time once a month, and that's it. Give back to your association. So, another thing that's happening that I want to let you know, Audrey Dorenbaum started this group. It's called Real Stories from Realtors, and we had our first meeting last month. We went to a restaurant where you were on your own to pay for whatever you wanted. Food prices were outrageous, drinks were outrageous, but it was a very informative afternoon. We told stories. Everybody had to come with their best real estate tip for the month. But we decided, yeah, why should we be spending all this money? So we're going to do it the second Wednesday of every month, so that's going to be February 9th, right here. We're going to do it in the training room. Bring whatever you want to drink. Adult beverages are okay. Bring an appetizer to share. Please don't everybody bring canned salsa and chips. And we'll just do some informal, fun network. Now, unfortunately, what happens the very next day, oh, that's at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5 or 5:30, however long you want to stay. We're not going to
Can't stay all night.
kick you out. The last one out has to turn out the lights, lock the doors. So, the very next day, February 10th, which is a Thursday, Marie Herod from Equity Title and I have done this for like, I don't know, 15 years. We're going to do Valentine's Day wine glass painting right here. Please sign up with Haley at the front desk. Marie will be bringing the wine glasses. She'll be bringing the paints. She'll be bringing the wine to drink while we paint our wine glass. And we just need to know how many are coming so that we have enough stuff. So that's all I have through the first half of the month.
Don't ask her how you paint and drink the wine at the same time.
We have a separate glass for that. Okay.
Literally gonna ask.
I know you are. Okay, so before we go on any further, I want to bring up Myra and her mortgage moment from prosperity. I made it through that. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to talk about interest rates. That's the most popular topic right now with all the rumor of them increasing. And I want to talk about buying power and what that does to a buyer's ability to qualify for a mortgage. So if you look at this slide back here, I started with a purchase price of $450 based on this morning's rate with a high credit score, 5% down. The interest rate would be 3.875. So if they just go up to 4%, that drops the borrower's buying ability by $7,000. So now if they just go from 3.875 to 4.5%, that drops the buyer's buying power by $32,000. So, you know, a higher the interest rate affects how much the mortgage payment is. So that's why it's so important to be cautious when we see right now in the market where we're going to see upwards interest rates going up. And yeah, if anybody needs, this is really cool to like post on social media or anything like that. So if anybody wants this, just let me know and I can send you guys a copy so you can post it because it is useful information for buyers. Yes, of course.
Thank you, Myra. Appreciate that. Any questions for Myra? So everyone understands that this, when the buyer says, why should I buy now? This is the perfect slide to pull out in your buyer presentation and say, duh. Don't say duh. I did that once. It didn't work out well.
Do we have that co-branded?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
So before we go on to the topic, which is our broker panel, does anyone have any new listings that they want to pitch?
I have a property actually right around the corner from here. It's like 6 minutes away. Tropicana and what is it? Tropicana and Port Apache. So literally right around the corner. It's gonna be 360. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse. HOA is only $140 a month. But I mean, this guy's a contractor. He never planned on selling the house, so he did everything high-end. He did, biking appliances throughout the little 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you put these in here. But he has those. He has stamped concrete throughout the entire front area of the house. He has koa wood that he had imported from Hawaii to put into the floorings in the bedrooms. He has cypress in one of the other bedrooms. I mean, fully full. It looks like you walk into a hotel room, like a resort style living, and he's selling it with everything inside of it too. So
How much?
nice. 360.
Does it have a garage?
2-car garage.
Anybody else? Anybody need a listing under 300,000? I've got one. Well, I'm gonna go first. I have the microphone.
Locally, not in some remote.
So, no, it's Southern Nevada. So I have a brand new townhouse in Laughlin. My in-laws live in Laughlin, so I go out there a lot. It's only 2 years old. It's a 2-bedroom. It's 1,200 square feet, and it's going live today for $269. If you can find another listing in the area for less than that, I'll sell it too. Laughlin, it's on the Nevada side. Yeah, it's only on it's on the 3rd Street. There's only 3 streets in Nevada.
Yeah, so 3rd Street from the main street. So we've got a listing going live on Thursday in Sun City Anthem. Nope, sorry, Sun City Aliante. Yes, north. Sun City Aliante, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage on the golf course, 420.
My first open house ever in the business was in Sun City Aliante. There were 39 listings on the street that I was holding the open house on. No one came. But I didn't stop, I kept holding it open. Okay, so let's talk about some topics. We have our broker panel today, and we have our 2 brokers, Janet and Todd, because those are the 2 current open offices, and technically I'm the Sun City broker right now until the Northwest opens, and then Tom will be back. He didn't go away, he's just on vacation again. So this came up from Todd. I think it's a great topic, and it's about information that you're sharing with the other agent and when you're sending emails in a transaction. And you brought up the topic less is more, so go ahead and expand on that.
I'm confused on where you were going with that. I was like, oh, this is mine. Okay, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, as you know, many times as brokers, we don't really get involved in the transaction until when? There's a problem, right, where something's going on. And so it's common for me to say, hey, send me an email, explain the situation, send any of your supporting emails, things that I can read through. And I'll literally get an email and there'll be 4 or 5 novels in those emails of our agent or their agent, like explaining everything to the T at the beginning of the transaction. I know, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, I know that it's important to try to sell what your client is trying to do. Your client has written an offer, you'd like to get it accepted, you're trying to get the listing agent, because we need to sell it to the listing agent before they'll sell it to the seller, right? So we've got to get the listing agent on our side, so when they go to the seller, I get all of that, but you got to be really careful not to just throw out every card so that later in the transaction, when the appraisal comes in low, you've already told them that they don't have anywhere to go. You've already told them they have extra money in the bank. One of the biggest ones I see is the buyer's willing to pay X amount of dollars over list price, and then I'll see an email that says, well, they've got a little more money if that's not enough. And so the appraisal comes in low, and what does the seller say? Well, here, look, you have an email that says that you're rich. I don't need to lower my price. You've already told me you can afford to pay for it, okay? So my concern is that we're not sharing our buyers and or our sellers, right? I see emails go back from the seller that says, well, the seller's brother, blah, 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 he's got to be there by, so now you've given up all the secrets on day one, and then you have zero ability to negotiate a transaction, you have zero ability to negotiate a situation. Appraisal comes in low, somebody wants to extend close of escrow, there's this, there's lots of things that happen during a transaction But if you laid all your cards on the table on day one, you literally take away your ability to protect your client and get your client what your client needs. And so all I'm saying is a lot of times in real estate, less is more. Like, share what you need to share, but you don't need to send the entire novel on day one, right? I mean, send them at a chapter at a time. I get it. I mean, I'm the opposite of that. I'm a very to the point. Like, you'll get an email from me and it'll say item number 1, and it's this, and it's like this long. And item number 2, and number 3, and number 4. Like, I'm not writing out an entire story. I'm just very pointed on the things I'm trying to get across. So I'm just saying to keep your client in the best possible position. Be careful what you share on day 1, because it will likely burn you on day 15, 18, or 25.
So when Todd brought this up, it reminded me of an email I had just gotten a month ago, and it was a forward of another email. And what happens in transactions is the emails go like 25 chains deep, right? And it's just the continuation, because it's easy to reply all to that email. Well, in this scenario, in one of the emails, one of the agents made a snide comment about the other agent, and basically said, this guy's a real whatever. But it was buried like 4 deep in the chain. Well, now this has gone reply all to at least all of the escrow team, all of the lending team, all of the clients. And by the way, the clients' emails are still on the chain. Would you want to provide the other party with your client's contact info? Because the whole point is they're supposed to be communicating through you as their representative. And so these agents were just forwarding these chains, and they would get their client's response, which the client's response was, well, here's what I hope will happen, and here's what I'll do. And they took that response and forwarded it on to the other party. That's not in the best interest of your client, right? Once upon a time, and the lender's gonna hate when I say this, but when I used to write an offer, I was told that when you write an offer for $400,000, you get an approval letter for what? $400,000, not for $560 that they're approved for, because the point is, when I see the approval letter, if I'm really paying attention and doing my job, I'm gonna know that you're qualified for more, right? And I know that it's very easy now for a lender to write an approval letter, a good approval letter. Other lenders don't write good approval letters, they're like toilet paper. But the whole point is with Prosperity, they will literally put one together, and you don't want an approval letter that has 40 items that are not good items on it either, right? Haven't checked their job, verified their credit, know that they have any income, they don't have no down payment. I mean, that's not an approval letter. And so it's all about the picture that you promote, and in the duties owed, there's a confidentiality clause. And so you're violating state law and your licensing policies if you actually tell your client's personal info to another party. And so I think to Todd's point, when you're communicating between the groups, it's very, very important that you're to the point and you're to your client's instruction. That's one thing that I also notice is a big problem. The agents go outside of what their client has told them to do, and when you do that, you've incurred all of the liability of the deal. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I'm gonna take this a step further, because if Vonda is hyperventilating while she's watching this. There's a difference between communication in the file and protection of your license. So one of the things I would tell you as a broker is that when I get a file transaction that goes bad, I have you write an email to me or to yourself at the time that you find out it's going bad. That is the email that you want to put down everything that ever happened from the course of the transaction, not your childhood, we're not going to get into that, but everything that's happened since the deal started and everything that you can remember, that email should go to you by yourself or to your file in SkySlope, so that 3 months later when we're in a hearing, I can actually pull up for the hearing panel in our professional standards chair over here, and I can say, group, this is everything that happened to my agent's recollection 3 months ago, not yesterday when the other agent put their email together.
And the point is, this isn't what you're sharing as you're going through the transaction. It's to yourself, it's to SkySlope, it's to the brokerage, it's so that we can help protect you at another time. It isn't the, I mean, as soon as the deal starts to go sideways, like, it just amazes me sometimes the things that people put on paper or in an email and send out. It's just incriminating. Oh, here's a good point you probably should have thrown out, right? So just be careful. I'll share a quick story. So I have a transaction. I was the buyer's agent. It's a house that my buyer bought in Southern Highlands. This happened about 14 days ago. We get down to the close of escrow. By the way, appraisal came in low. Listing agent asked if the buyer could pay the difference. I responded and said, no, she's a single mother. She is a school teacher, and she's trying to get out of a rental situation and buy her first property. That was my response to the listing agent's question of could the buyer pay the difference? So from that, the listing agent takes that we're canceling the escrow. Well, due diligence goes by, we didn't cancel. Appraisal contingency goes by, we didn't cancel. We're about a week from closing, and I reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, listen, how are the repairs going? We sent over repair requests. They agreed to do all the repairs. How are the repairs going? And by the way, we don't have our HOA resale packages. Have you ordered them? We're a week from closing. It's about a 40-day close. There's been plenty of time to get both master and sub, what is that called? Sub-association. There you go. Sorry. Couldn't think about that. So the agent replies back and goes, well, I thought we were canceling. So I look on MLS, and sure enough, it's back in ER status. Like, we've never sent a cancellation. She just assumed from my email that we were canceling. Well, we never did that. So I reach out to her broker and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that, you know, this has happened, and hey, could you reach out to your agent and ask her to put it back in, you know, under contract status. We're still moving forward. I don't know why she did that. And so sure enough, it goes back in. Well, we get down to the close of escrow date, the 18th, and we have no resale package for the master association. We have no resale package for the sub-association. We go there, do the walkthrough. By the way, it was sold with all the furniture in it. Half the furniture's gone. None of the repairs have been done. This is like a train wreck on the last day, right? So my client says, well, I say, well, we got some options here. Number one is we can extend close of escrow so that they have time to get us the HOA resale packages, to find out where the rest of this furniture went. I mean, that's what we could do. She's like, no, absolutely not extending close of escrow. I've got to be out of my rental by the 31st, and it's the 18th, and I still got paid. And I said, well, that's dangerous, right? Because now we don't really. She says, okay, close it up. So we close it up, and we still don't have resale packages. We don't even know if resale packages have been ordered. By the way, talk to your broker if that ever happens. I happen to be a broker, so I was able to just talk to myself a lot. I sent myself.
You had to wait for a call back, though.
I sent myself an email. I read the email. Today's the first, right? We're like 22 days after close of escrow. One of the resale packages shows up today. So yesterday, I reach out to a friend of mine at the division and just ask a hypothetical question. I don't throw anybody under buses. I don't name names. I don't name addresses. I just say, hey, what if this happened? What would be my buyer's best avenue to get this resolved? And his response, it's very interesting. His response says, well, what would happen is that agent will probably be found in violation and be fined. And so would you. And I said, reply back, okay. Could you expound on that? He says, well, I would be willing. He didn't give that back to me, but so what he said to me was, and you were talking about making sure that our files are updated, all of our information is in there. He said, when that complaint gets filed, we're going to summons your file from your brokerage as well, and we're probably going to find something wrong with it. Whether it has to do with HO resale packages, whether it has with dates on the contract, whether it has with you didn't protect your client well enough by pushing hard enough to get the resale packages, right? That's a personal opinion, because I replied back and said, look, we requested the resale package multiple times during the transaction, and you know what he said? So, right? I mean, he was pretty clear that, hey, there's a good chance you're going to get fined, just like the other agents get fined. So my point with that is this email that Chris talks about that you write to yourself and that you put in your file, guys, it's a big deal. Like you might even do that on every single one of your transactions at the end, and just write yourself up. Here's what I remember about everything that happened during this transaction, and put it in your file. Because you know what? If nobody ever reads it, that's great. But if somebody needs to read it, it could be the difference between a huge fine and not a huge fine. By the way, it's a $10,000 fine. the whole HOA resale package thing, right? And so I don't want that. And so now,
today.
I didn't sleep very good last night because I was up thinking about that stupid file all night. Like today, I gotta go in and look at that file to make sure that we're all good there. But guys, write yourself the email. It doesn't take very long. Put it in your file. SkySlope is really good. There's an email address at the top. If you copy that and you send your email to that email address, it automatically goes in. You don't even have to do anything other than send the email.
You can send
So
50
did
at a
it
time.
close? Or did
Yeah.
it close?
Closed on the,
Oh, it closed, so now this year, you just never had the reset.
Yeah.
yeah, she didn't have either one.
Okay.
Who paid the difference in the pick?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the price, you played this.
So many
I want
extra bricks.
to thank Prosperity Lending for making some adjustments to her loan. Again, she was a school teacher.
And she did some-
Myra doesn't know what I'm talking about, but I will say that the deal was dead. And I talked to Shelley because Shelley happened to be the lender. By the way, this buyer shows up at my office one day out of the blue. I'm leaving to go home. She's walking in the door, and I'm like, "Hi, what's up? What?" Longtime friend of my family. And she goes, "Oh, I'm here to meet Shelley." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Let me see if I can find her." And I showed her houses about a year and a half ago. I had no idea that she was back in the market. She went through a big breakup. There was all this stuff, right? And so, as I leave the office that day, I'm thinking to myself, did she find a different agent? And now that Shelley's meeting with her, and so I send Shelley a text, "Hey, could you call me after you meet with so-and-so?" And so I'm like, am I still her agent? I don't even know. Like, what's going on here? This lady just caught me by surprise, right? Well, it ends up that I had given Shelley's contact information to her back then, and she just reached out to her because she decided it was time for her to get something done. So during the transaction, it was dead. I talked to Shelley one more time and said, "Is there anything that you can do with the loan that might make the difference up in that $13,000? This lady literally took all the money out of her 401, out of some of her retirement, right? She was laying out every penny to get into a home, and they were able to do some this and that and tweak tiers and some tweaks there. But I mean, working with a good lender, that's what that's about, right? You can go have the frank conversation around, "Hey, what can we do?" And then, of course, Shelley helped by putting in a little bit of hers as well. Yes?
Yeah, I have a broker question. When you brought up the HOA resale package, I recently did a deal where they were dragging their feet. I hadn't received it. So I reached out, I said, "Well, when are we gonna do this?" And she copied me on an email she sent to the escrow company. And she asked them to order the resale package, which they did. So my question is, if you have an agent dragging their feet like it, what would be the propriety of me contacting the escrow company and saying, "Can you order this and charge it to the seller," since they're not doing this? Right?
Well, I don't think you could, I think you could suggest that they order it and send the payment link over to the listing agent. I don't think that you could say charge it because somebody has to pay for it up front.
That was a service they
They
provided.
pay it up front. that's
Yeah,
correct.
so by the way, that happened in this transaction, and that was the agent's excuse, was that she asked escrow to order the demands, and she assumed, she being the listing agent, she assumed that they at the same time ordered the resale packages along with the demands.
Yeah,
So
Now,
first time this happened.
yeah, she said it was just something that she just missed.
I want to be clear on that, though, that the reason why everyone would have been fined, and this is the point, is that on section 10 of the contract, it says seller shall provide at seller's expenses CIC documents as required. And we actually put the law on every section of the contract, right? So that you can take the law and say you're breaking the law, breaking the law. It says seller shall request the resale package within 2 business days of acceptance. If the seller doesn't do that, the seller's the one that signs the contract, not the listing agent or escrow. The seller is in breach of the contract. It's the listing agent's responsibility to confirm to the seller that they know that they're in breach, and it's the buyer's agent's responsibility to point out, for their client's benefit at the client request, that they're in breach. And so the point is, and I've seen this fine before, they will continuously have to point that out because they're allowing the transaction before it. And Todd's point is, we asked multiple times for them to cure their violation of the contract. And so if you're sitting in front of the commissioners, they all know this, by the way. Well, I won't say all of them, some of them. Some of them are not residential agents. And the point is, did you really work as hard as you could to point it out? And we're all busy. And so you would think that I send you an email and I send escrow an email, I don't know that a compliance officer would think that that's enough. They might think every day in the transaction and every day after it was enough. And that's how they look at things. I mean, no matter what happens, you always get stuck on something. He's right. Janet?
So the other thing too, this is how a lot of agents get in trouble. You may think you've done nothing wrong, and probably in the big scheme of things, you probably have not. But somebody else is in trouble, and they're in a deal with you, and you don't know that they're in trouble, and the division is looking at them. And the division will request your file, even though they have no reason to request it because no complaint's been filed against you. And then when they get your file, they're gonna find something. So just be aware of that.
Okay, so, and the point of it, the thing I want to point out is there's a reason why there's a timeline sheet, right? There's a reason why there's contractual obligations in this contract, and reasonable skill and care is the whole point of this, that you have to know what's in here, because every other realtor out there could know what's in here. And every other class that you could go to is a contracts class when you renew your license. And so the point is, if you don't know, you need to sit down and read it. I have a section here I want to move to just because it came up, and I think it's a great question. And it came up as a broker question, and that was, what's a day in the contract? When is my due diligence up if I'm on the last day? And so I went and read all of this today because I had to remember. And so in the contract, there's two types of days. Anyone name them? Well, aren't all the days on the calendar? Right? That was a contract joke. The Bar Association would have laughed at that one. Yeah, it's not on there. Okay, so earnest money. Calendar or business? It's a business day. Deposit within one business day. Right? Okay, how about the appraisal contingency? It's a calendar day, but it's not that day. It's the calendar day following the date of acceptance. So that means that when you go to count that day, you do not count the day you're in. It doesn't start until the day following what? Do you know that acceptance is actually in the definition section? What is complete acceptance? So all signatures was the point of an accepted contract, but acceptance actually isn't until all signatures have been delivered to the party receiving. So I'm going to read this because nobody ever does. And we'll come back to the days. Where's it at? Where's it at? Well, let me go through the other days. Loan contingency, the same thing. It's calendar days following the date of acceptance. Due diligence is buyer shall have blank calendar days following the date of acceptance of the RPA. How about the prelim? Within 10 days of opening escrow.
Business.
It's actually 10 business days, which is funny. I thought it would have been the same way. Utilities. The seller shall supply to the property utilities within 2 business days after acceptance of this agreement and remain on until closing. Right? So a couple of people have said, no, it has to be on the day I see it. It actually doesn't have to be until acceptance. And then here's the best part. I know I've done this, page 8, right? Page 8, when someone gets to it, like you don't stop on it and explain page 8 to your client because it's just a lot of words, right? And what I usually tell them, there's nothing there to fill in. And so what I usually tell the client, this is the definition section of the contract to explain what all the big words are. And for me, it's how I spell them, right? But here's what it says. Acceptance means that both parties have consented to a final binding contract by affixing their signatures to the agreement, and all counteroffers and said agreements and all counteroffers have been delivered to both parties pursuant to section 24. Well, if I just read that part and I didn't read section 24, I don't know the whole thing. Well, here's section 24. This agreement may be signed by the parties no more than on more than one copy. So if you had 2 buyers and you had an addendum or a counteroffer, one could execute one copy, one could execute another copy, and you could put those together. That used to happen a lot. Doesn't happen very often anymore. This agreement and documents related to any resulting transaction may be signed by the parties manually, that means in person, or digitally, and facsimile signatures may be accepted as originals. That's exciting. That was a big deal. B, when a party wishes to provide notice as required in this agreement, such notice shall be sent by regular mail, personal delivery, overnight delivery, by facsimile and or by electronic transmission to the agent for that party. The notification shall be effective when postmarked, received, faxed, delivery confirmed, and or read receipt confirmed in the case of email. Delivery of all instruments or documents associated with this agreement shall be delivered to the agent or the seller or buyer if represented. Any cancellation notices shall be, it's delivered to the escrow the same night. So the point of this is that when you receive something in your email, the fact that you're on vacation, or the fact that you haven't got to it yet, or the fact that you've got 10 other closings is not a valid response. Once you received it, that's technically your receipt of it. Now, what about spam? Right, it goes to your junk folder, the whole thing. If I, as the agent on the other side, can prove that you read it and got it, that's acceptance. Does that make sense? Everyone get that? Okay, so this is a good one. What is a business day versus a calendar day? Here's what it says. Business day excludes Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. Okay, so that means Monday through Friday if it's not a legal holiday. A calendar day means a calendar day from or to midnight unless otherwise specified. Does that make sense? So on all the days, because unless it's specified, it's to or from midnight. Now, if I'm going to close escrow, can I close at 11:35 p.m.? Why not? They're not open. Do you know recordings have been happening like that though? The recorder's office has been recording until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and confirmation doesn't come to that point, but the point is things like that happen. But I like the part in here it says unless otherwise specified. So that means that you as the agent, and I don't recommend you go out and do this, don't come up with a new addendum. But when you write things in a contract, they have real meaning. And so that's why there's this definition section. Make sense? Questions on that?
Yeah.
Or do you have a question or a comment?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
You have a question?
Ladies first.
Thank you, Todd.
That's why Chris.
So this came up yesterday about when is a contingency up? And again, it depends on, is it calendar days or is it business days? But I was talking to Lois, our education director, about this, and she
Raise
said,
your hand back there, Lois, over there.
and she said, you know, the NVR attorney did a white paper on this not too long ago, and she said, I don't remember what it said, but you might find it. So I went and looked it up. And here is what Bristol Keegan, our NVR legal information hotline attorney, had to say. Question, does business days, aside from being considered a working day, not weekends or holidays, include a time? For example, 9 to 5. So, here's her answer.
Dolly Parton says yes, 9 to 5.
Or it could be 9 to 6, or it could be 8 to 5. I answer, first, agents would look at their contract to see if a time is specified in writing. Well, there's no place on the contract for us to put a time except the time at the very end. So you might want to say, if you want something different, you might have to write that in. And she said, I'm guessing time's not in boilerplate. There's no standard business working hours in today's digital age, an age of business round the clock. Now, that was the first paragraph. But if the particular escrow company, and I think this could be interpreted to mortgage lender, whatever, has established working hours of, let's say, 9 to 6, and performance of funds has not been achieved as per the contract by the end of the business day, as confirmed, it is reasonable to presume there may be a breach of performance. So the real answer is, it depends.
So reasonable skill and care says that you know that escrow companies and mortgage companies and the Fed who wires money, and they have time frames. They don't work until 11:59 p.m. on the day of your close of escrow date. So all of the terms that Chris has read, which is super important, we should know, and what Janet said is super important when we get in front of the judge. Like if we cancel a transaction and nobody gets their earnest money back because it's $47,000, and the seller said, nope, not going to give it back because they didn't cancel until 11 p.m. on the day of the due diligence. And so I was already in bed, I was already clear that we were moving forward, and now I'm mad because I'm the seller, and I'm not giving it back. When we get in front of a judge, probably gonna win the case. You probably got a really, really good chance of getting that $47,000 back. Here's your challenge. How many of you have had to tell your clients that they need to go file a lawsuit? And how many of them have been happy with you because they had to go file a lawsuit? Has anybody ever had to tell a client that? Were they happy about it?
No,
Why?
I wasn't happy either.
Costs a lot of money,
No, it was like, what the heck does that mean?
and it costs a lot of time,
It does.
and nobody gets their money back.
Can I add something?
No,
to
not yet, not yet.
that? It's my business day.
Yes, and I'm on the calendar days, the 29th. I'm gonna stop on the 29th of February is when I'm gonna let you in. This is a filibuster. All right, so here's my point, guys. Our job is to facilitate the sale of real estate between buyers and sellers. Our job is to know what we're doing. And if your normal business is to send cancellations at 11 p.m. because you're up late, and guys, that's gonna bite you at some point. I would tell you to do everything that you can. If there's a cancellation gonna happen, if an addendum needs to be done, do everything you can do to get that done during normal business hours, and only let it be the one-off case where you suddenly, somebody got, I mean, we just had this situation. We had a buyer on a listing who passed away, right? At a weird hour, and cancellation came over because of that. And that totally makes sense. But that doesn't make sense if that's the norm of your business and you're sending stuff over at 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night just because you can, because the contract says that. Because what you're really up against isn't necessarily a judge until you have to file that lawsuit. You're up against a seller or a buyer who's just going to be mad. And when they get mad, they just do whatever they want. They're not very reasonable people. So try to do it during business hours whenever possible.
I'm getting my own microphone. I want to point this out, and here's the question, the heart of the question we got. Usually when that question comes up, it's because there's a problem in the deal. And so here's what I suggest. Don't wait until the 7th day of a 10-day due diligence to start asking questions about why we haven't heard anything. And that's the point of everything we've talked about, is usually when it gets down to that point, it never ends well, right? So I usually will get on to somebody on the 5th day of a 10-day due diligence and say, hey, how is it going? Are you doing the things you're asking for? I'm not telling them, did you do an inspection, but I'm asking the questions in writing to make sure I'm proactive about it. Same thing with close of escrow. Don't wait for the close of escrow date to come up. We just had a scenario where the the seller's moving out of the property, right? And the agents didn't communicate with each other on how the coordination of the key transfer would happen. And so the property recorded. They recorded at 12 o'clock, lucky that person. And the seller's moving out of the house. There's a U-Haul truck in front, and the buyer comes over with their U-Haul truck and says, this is my house. It's their house. They own it. Now, I guarantee you when the cops show up and there's one truck moving out and one truck moving in, it's going to be an interesting scenario. But who was wrong in that instance? It was the agents. The agents didn't communicate. And I know Todd sees this, and I know Janet has seen this as a president of the board, and I know anyone that's involved in it. Usually the buyer and the seller have no problems. They're excited about buying, or they're excited about getting paid. The only ones with the problems are the ego-driven agents. Because I gotta be right. You know there's no right award?
Be careful what you're writing.
Right? Okay, so a couple of other things we want to point out. This one came from Brandon, and he's seeing a trend in the company where agents are putting the wrong information on the confirmation form of the contract. You have to put Brandon's info as the broker or your office manager. So if you're in the Spanish Ridge office, that's Janet. If you're in the Green Valley office, that's Todd. If you're in the Sun City office, it's me. You can put my info down or Brandon's. We're interchangeable. What I don't want you to do is to put Brandon's name down with my information, right? Because we want to make sure the information is correct so that when it goes in front of any party, it leads to the right person. Because if it says Brandon and you get Chris, would you be pissed, right? You'd be upset. So the whole point is make sure you're putting in the right contact info. The number that's on that is for your number. So put down your phone number, not Brandon's phone number, because we actually have clients and escrow companies that are calling Brandon because the agent put down his cell phone number. And so I just want to make sure that's clear. And where it says email, that's your email, the one that you actually check, not the Yahoo email that you can't find the password for, right? These are business items that you need to make sure are in the contract. The other thing we're seeing is that agents aren't filling out the other agent's info. And the most common excuse I'm still getting is, well, I don't have it. Well, if you don't have their info, I don't think your offer is going to get accepted, right? But when you click in the MLS, you're going to notice that all of those sections are now blue. Why do you think they're blue? They're hyperlinks, so that when you click on them, including the broker's name on the MLS, by the way, it takes you right to their Realtor Association profile, and in their Realtor Association sign-on documents, they claim the info they provide is their best contact info. And so you can use that to input it into the confirmation section. Does that make sense? And I didn't have time is not a good excuse.
So, and I actually had a situation where the agent did not fill in that information, the confirmation with all the listing agent's information. And so the listing agent, very knowledgeable, said, well, there's no confirmation on the contract, so you have to fill out a confirmation form. But the other thing I want to go back to is the contact information. So this happens all the time. I have a situation where I have to call an agent. And I'm sorry, but I'm trying to get in the habit of using our new app. It doesn't always happen. And sometimes it's easier for me to just go to MLS and look up the agent's phone number because I have to call them. Well, guess what phone number they have in the multiple listing service as their contact number? 799-9598. I'm like, holy crap. So go
That's
back.
the office number, by the way.
Yeah. So go back through your stuff.
But Janet, I don't want to be bothered. I want them to call the office and then the office can let me know.
Well, let me tell you something. This office has a different number. Nobody knows what it is, but it does have a different number.
Because they put it in the contract.
And so they can't put it in contracts, they don't know what it is. And then, what if the agent's trying to, get your offer at 6:30 at night, or he's with his seller and he has a question for you, and he can't get a hold of you, because nobody's answering this phone at 6:30 at night.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We need to have your information current. Please go back through, just check your MLS profile. You can change it yourself and be sure you have your cell number, because I guarantee you, I'm just guessing, but I'm going to say I'm pretty accurate, between 35 and 40% of you have the office phone number as your contact information in the multiple listing service. Hello?
Let me say one more thing about this. When you guys put Brandon's name down on a contract, and then you send it to Todd to sign it, Brian Todd Martin, I'm not going to sign it. I'm not going to sign my name. And then here's the other one. You'll put Brandon's name down, and then you'll put Brandon's signature down, and then you'll email it to me for me to click Brandon's name. Guys, I'm not Brandon. Could I probably do it and probably be okay? Yeah, I'm just not going to do it though. Like I'm not going to put myself in that situation. So if you're going to put someone else's name down, send the emails to them. But what Brandon's trying to get across here is you should be sending it to your managing brokers. It should be in the name of your managing brokers, and the phone number and email on all your contracts should be yours, not ours. I probably get 15 KB new home contracts a month in my email. I have no idea who they belong to. I can open them up and I can look through those 737 pages of content to try to find the agent's name. It is in one place. Half the time I can't find it, and so I don't know what to do with it other than delete it, because they put my email address as the agent's email address. Guys, it says broker's email, but understand that's a universal term throughout the country.
It's defined in the contract, by the way.
Oh, it's on page page 8 of the contract. You could be referred to as the broker as well. You need to be clear on whether they're asking you for your direct contact information, or do they really need your broker's contact information?
So other thing on here is the app. So we've had the best effect with any agents because we have all of these managers, which is great, right? And I know you have your manager that you like to go to, and that's okay. That's why we have them all. But the point is, if you take us all and put us on a chain in the app, even Janet, because she is actually on there and responds on those chains with all of us, that's immediate response in most cases. One of us is looking at our phone. And so we talked about it about 15 sales meetings ago. So make sure you add all of those brokers to a conversation. Please put your name, broker conversation, and keep it. And then anytime you have a problem or something on there, we're right there to respond. It's very effective, and I've not had anyone have a problem doing that. And most of the people that are doing it get immediate replies to that. A couple other things that I want to make sure on here. Now, one of the things I got a complaint for, one of the agents, was their client didn't know what was going on in the transaction. That is the worst possible thing that can happen with a consumer. That they say, my agent didn't tell me, I didn't know, I didn't understand. Do you think you're going to get a lot of referrals from that client? I mean, how is it possible that your client doesn't understand? I mean, they're buying a house, we know how that works, but it's the things going on in the transaction that agents are making decisions without asking their client for permission. Who makes all the decisions in the transaction? Right, either the buyer or the seller, and they have to come to terms on them. Okay, a couple of other things. If you're putting a rental, and there is actually no such thing as a courtesy rental, ask me why.
Why is it?
Because you're responsible for anything that you put into the MLS, more importantly, the brokerage is too. And when you put in a co-op and the information, no matter what happens, we're responsible for that co-op. And so you must have a listing agreement for a rental listing. Ask me why. Because it obligates the owner to pay that co-op and abide by the terms that are listed in the MLS. Does that make sense? Now, if you don't want to do that and you don't want to go through that to post a courtesy rental that doesn't exist, we have a whole department that will do it for you. Okay, here's the other thing. This came up in our Facebook post. A lot of agents are answering questions instead of providing resources. What happens when you answer the question? You're completely liable for the response because you're a licensee that's regulated by the state. If you instead provide the resource that answers the question, who's liable? The resource, right? And so here's what I'm going to tell you. In real estate today, that's not an actual group, real estate today, Inman, the RJ, all of these organizations are out doing articles and informational pieces about what's going on in our industry. Some of them are even correct. And so when you see one that is correct, that makes sense, save it. Start saving an archive of all of these great reports and pieces so that when your client asks you a question, you're able to go to your resources and say, wow, this article answers why this is not a good model for them to work in. This answers why Zillow isn't the most effective at pricing their home. This answers why the real estate market is so hot and they can't get a home right now, instead of you just answering the question. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions on any of that so far? The only thing I have left is coming soon. Everyone here understand coming soon listings? Anyone here not understand coming soon listings besides me? Right? Okay, so this is the conversation we were having. If I meet with a client and they're ready to list their property, but they need to have the house cleaned. They need to have the house painted. They're not really sure on the price. It's one of those eclectic properties. There's a lot of reasons why we would put a home in a temporary status like coming soon. Coming soon in the MLS is different than coming soon in the marketplace. Anyone seen Zillow coming soon? You see that? That used to be a big thing. Agents would go in because they're getting a listing, or the consumer would go in because they're thinking of selling, and they would market their home as coming soon. And what was happening is buyers were on Zillow, and you were their agent representing them, and they go, hey, you never sent me this listing. Is that a fair playing field for you as the agent? Why not? It's not, unless you have no access to the data for how to show the property. And so because of that, the MLS, when, I think you were, I was president or you were president, Janet, either one, we were both on it, came up with coming soon status. It could have been Dave. And so the idea with it is that you as a realtor could take a listing with a binding listing contract, and instead of putting the property directly into ER status, which you should absolutely do if the property's ready to sell, if you needed to do one of those things that I just talked about, you could put it into coming soon status for 30 days. And because you had a valid listing agreement that was inputted into the MLS, showing all of the info to all the realtor participants, you could then market the property. Does that make sense? You cannot market a coming soon listing that is not in the MLS. So if you have this great property that you know you're getting ready to list, you cannot put it on your personal Facebook page and say, hey, new listing coming up, because you're technically marketing a property I as another realtor don't have access to. Now, there is a difference when you put it into agents of signature, because only agents of signature can see it. But sometimes that's not true either, because we have vendors, we have other people that are part of our signature family that are in there. But the whole point is, you can't mark it coming soon that doesn't go out to all agents with data. Anyone not get what I just said? It's okay if you don't, ask now. Because probably 85% of our association doesn't get it.
With the time delay that you can input into the MLS, if you have the contract, you can start marking at that point, though, even though you haven't inputted it yet?
No. So it has to go into that status.
It still needs to be in. Period.
Correct. Correct.
It's got to be in MLS within 24 hours of your advertising.
Oh,
So if you take a listing on a Thursday night and you decide to advertise Friday morning that, hey, I got this new listing coming up, it needs to be in the MLS by Saturday morning.
Does that mean I couldn't file a complaint against you though for still seeing it? Probably I could, but then they'd call for an audited listing file through the board, and they'd see that listing contract and say, well, he's technically in compliance. But you don't want to be stuck on that, right? The bigger problem is people are putting it out there for good reasons, but it's violating that co-op provision. And I'm not talking about co-op for commission, I'm talking about co-op for data. And the other thing is coming soon does not feed to any aggregators, right? That's the one thing that we did because we were dealing with all of these companies that were taking our data. And so we said, here's an answer. When you have this temporary listing that needs this temporary status, we just won't feed it to anybody. We as a brokerage can feed it to whoever we want because it's our listing in a binding contract. I can take it and put it on any portal I want. I have to upload it, but it still has to be in the MLS. Lois?
So how do we fill out a listing agreement if we don't want to do the coming soon thing, but they need it off the market for 2 weeks for whatever reason? How do we word a listing agreement?
So here's why this whole thing is a problem. I have a client who's ready to list a property and they need 2 weeks. When should I list the property?
Today.
Okay, but here's the risk. Ellie, who's a great agent, is out door knocking, and he meets my client. And automatically they like Ellie because who doesn't? And if you got the choice between Ellie and me, you're gonna pick Ellie. And so Ellie takes the listing. He now has possession of that listing. Even though I have a binding agreement, you can only have one listing in the MLS. So he takes the listing, puts it in the MLS, and sells it. Now that is a paperwork nightmare, and I'm probably gonna sue the seller for my commission. But who has the listing sold? Ellie. I've actually had that happen, by the way, to an agent that I worked with. He took a listing, waited 30 days to put it in because they weren't ready to go, and he waited to take it at that point, and someone else took the listing and sold it in the hot market. And so that's why we came up with coming soon, because it puts it in there. Now, could you take the contract and then write in the back of it, property to go into MLS at a later date? I've actually heard that's a violation of MLS policy if you put in a conflicting date because it says in the beginning of the agreement, under the MLS rules, it has to be in within 1 day. You don't have the power to change the MLS rules. Does that make sense?
So this is probably wrong, but this is what I've done for years, and I've told agents to do this, and so far, I'm not in trouble. But if you go in and do a listing presentation and the seller says to you, well, you know, we really want to paint these boys' room because it's a disaster, and we might even look at replacing the carpet before we're ready for people to come through it. If you, as Chris said, if you say, okay, well, you know how long you think that's going to take, give me a call and I'll come back when the rooms are painted and the new carpet's put in their bedroom, and we'll go from there. You've probably lost that listing. So what I've done for years, and if this is wrong, you can tell me and I probably won't change, is on the contract, listing contract where it says, first page, commencing on, I say to them, what day do you think you'll be ready for this to go into the MLS? And if they say, oh, probably by February 21st we'll be good to go. Then I put commencing on February 21st, that's the day it's going in the MLS. But I fill out the entire rest of the contract, all the paperwork, and I get them to sign it and date it today. Yeah, I do it. Even if it's not legally binding, because it's not starting till the 21st, even though they signed it on the 1st.
It's legally binding. It just doesn't start till the 21st.
But they think they're locked in and they're not going to be interviewing another agent.
But as long as Ellie's not door knocking your listing, then we're okay.
Yeah,
Can you do that?
Why not just put it at 21st in the MLS right now, coming soon? Especially in this market.
Right.
You've got people biting at, chomping at the bit. They can't wait till that 21st comes. That's what I think.
That's the whole reason we created the status. And by the way, when we created the status, it was not this market. It was a very traditional market. The only problem we had was people were trying to get an opportunity to sell the home before they go off the data. And so for me, coming soon fixed all of those issues. Mr. Seller, here's the good news. You're probably not going to like something in the marketing of this property, and I want to be able to fix it so everything is the way you want it before the listing goes actually live to every portal. And so we have 30 days. We have 30 days because you're going to get your carpet, and get your kids, and get your things out of the house, or whatever you have to do. And it'll give us 30 days to pre-market this property to everybody. And the good news is, if we sell it right away for the price you want, great, we're done. And if we don't, at the end of 30 days, it will go live. Why then would I put it in T status? Why then would I need to wait for a listing date? It fixed all of those problems. Now, it does have an addendum that would go with the listing agreement that explains to the seller, here's what coming soon means. And I highly recommend you read the addendum because it explains all the reasons behind that. What we used to do instead of what Janet did was I would make the listing effective today. I'd sign the listing so that Thomas couldn't come in and take my listing and sell it before we got there, because that's what he does. He sells listings really quick when Ellie's not door knocking. And so I would take the listing today and then I would put it in T status for 30 days because T status has multiple provisions that allow it to be in T status. One is a title issue. One is a lost key because that agent keeps showing my listings, right? Who's the guy that keeps taking the keys? And then there's all these other provisions. You can put T status and it would do the same thing, but I have a binding listing that you can't go out and
I
market
think it's
to.
you and a doorknob.
See?
Anyway. You mentioned a little bit ago that if you have it coming soon, and because it's our brokerage, we can actually upload it to other portals. So like, if it's in the MLS, we can physically take that coming soon, put it into Zillow.
Now, I want to be really, really clear because this is the point. You must have a valid listing agreement with the coming soon writer, and you must put that data into the MLS for all realtor participants to see. Once you've complied with those guidelines, you as the listing agent or the listing brokerage can then market the property as a coming soon status listing. Okay? But it has to have all of those things with it, because when you go to market it, what are you sharing? You're sharing the MLS data showing where that's at. The only thing it's not marketing out there is all of the portals that don't have it because we're not feeding to them. But a brokerage could be feeding to them.
The super important part of marketing your listing during a coming soon listing period is that you must market it as a coming soon. So if you're putting a sign in the front yard, guess what the sign has to have on it? Coming soon writing. Do you get what I mean by that now? You have to advertise it as a coming soon. You can't just put a sign in the front yard and go, oh, well, I didn't have a coming soon writer. Somebody turns you in for that, it's a cool $1,000.
Las Vegas Realtor, what's the website for it? LasVegasRealtor.com. On there's the MLS policies. I highly recommend that you go and pick the one that shows the coming soon policies, because that's what's been agreed upon. And you can literally just print it out and have all of those pieces. I didn't even think about the sign, but he's right. People put up a sign because they take a listing, right? Well, when I drive by and see that sign and you haven't put it in the MLS yet, you're in violation of the MLS policies because you're marketing property that isn't in the MLS. It's a huge point. Okay.
Can you accept an offer during the
Yes, you can.
Yes.
You can, and I have sold.
Yep, you absolutely can. That's the whole point.
Yeah, here's my perspective on that is if you're in a coming soon situation and somebody wants to write an offer on your property, guess what? It's going to be the best possible offer, right? They're going to try to get it during this time of the coming soon. And so, yes, now here's the other thing I will say. The next question is, well, can I show the property during the coming soon listing? That was your next question, right? Yeah, I could see it in your eyes. So, yes, you absolutely can show it, but you can't show it and not allow other people to show it. If you decide to show it, and another agent calls and says, I would like to show it, you need to allow them to show it as well. If you're not showing it personally, you can still let other agents show it, but you can't hold it for yourself to show for 30 days without letting other agents in.
Don't take your own key.
Does that make sense? Yeah, don't.
Can you do an open house on a coming soon?
Sure, you can market it all you want, as long as you market it as a coming soon.
And have it.
Has to say in all of your marketing, coming soon, and Just like the division says, they like your logo and their logo to be, our company logo to be the same size, I would tell you that it better say coming soon in some pretty big letters, or it could be considered a violation.
Here's the other thing, and this is the whole point of this. People were trying to use this as a leg up to get deals before other people get them. I've seen no one conquer the world with it, right? And so when a property's ready to be listed, don't use this as a crutch, because I don't think that
You're out of time.
no, that clock's fast by 5 minutes. I know I said it. When you actually go through this process, do what's fair, and that's the whole point. If you're fair by sharing the info with everybody, you'll never get in trouble for it. But if you're withholding it, you know, it's just like the idea when I look in and I sent you an offer and you had 30, and I look and you put the property in under your ID because you sold it. What do people think of that? They think it's unfair. Why? Why do they think it's unfair? Because they feel, because of whatever occurred, that they didn't get a fair shake. Now, if I involve them in everything by saying, hey, I got 30 offers, we're presenting tomorrow at 3 o'clock, the seller's gonna make a decision hopefully by 4, I'm gonna respond to everyone at 4:30, I'm gonna let them know what's going with it. On every one of those instances where people have been upfront about what's gonna happen, even when they sell it themselves, which is the whole reason I took the listing, by the way, people are okay with it. But when they hear nothing and they get a rejection back and they see your name in there, they think it's unfair. And so I think at the end of the day with coming soon, it's a status, that's all it is. It's like ER, C or P or any of the other ones that we don't have anymore. But it's a status, that's all it means. It does, okay, so here's something that I don't know how this happened, and I wasn't an elected official anymore. It's Janet's fault. When I was on the MLS board, I was the first sitting past chair because there was none. And so they put the current president, and then the past president was Dave Tina. So him and I sat on it together. When we wrote the coming soon thing, the idea was it wouldn't show up on any of the market ticking times. Because the idea, I could test the price. You have a home that you think would be a $4 million listing, but you don't really know if it's a $4 million listing, right? It could be 3.3. And so you could put it on for $4 million, and once the 30 days is over, no one would see that. And if you didn't get any bites or any activity, you could then reset it, put it in at 3.3 and start active listing. They decided, and I can understand why, they decided to take that provision out. So it does show your active days on market. It does show all the information the same listing would. And my understanding, Janet, is that came from CMLS, which is a big MLS group that regulates MLS policies. I know. But you had a fair shot to market it. Right?
As it coming soon.
That's coming soon.
I know we're almost out of time. One other thing I want to say real quickly. If you are a signature agent and you have not been through orientation, there will be an orientation right here in this room at 11 o'clock.
Coming soon.
Coming in 25 minutes.
Okay, so, yes.
I
Last
have a
question.
question about something I saw yesterday on MLS. I saw a listing and then it was active, and then I was like, whoa, you know, maybe my buyer wants this one. And then I read the agent remarks, accepted offer, but we still accept backup offers.
Yeah.
So why did you leave it?
So, okay, so here's all I can tell you. When you see something in the MLS that obviously isn't right, that's why we put that big data error thing, not the little one we used to have. Remember that conversation? That was a funny one. They got in this whole argument about how big the data error button should be so that agents would pay attention to it, right? And they were gonna put it really big. Anyway, click on that and say, agent says that they've already had an offer on the property, they've accepted it. Now the whole point is that they haven't accepted an offer, they're still marketing the property. They're just telling you they have multiple. So you still have a chance to write an offer because it's not accepted. When it's accepted, you gotta change the status. You can't wait for the earnest money, right? You have to accept that contract and put it into a contingent status within the MLS rules guidelines. What is it? Is it 24 hours? 24 hours? Or is it 48 hours? I think it's 48 hours.
48?
I think it's 48. I don't know. Go read your MLS policies. You'll find out like I will. Yeah. I don't know if it's business or calendar days, but it's hours. That's funny because in the contract you have business days, calendar days. In the association you have hours, right? And you only have hours to pay your dues. Okay, thank you guys so much. Let's give a hand to our panel and our great brokers. We've got some other great meetings planned for you this month, so make sure that you're here, and thank you guys for being here.